Please do make sure to help us subscribe and hit that notification bell. They thought I was broken. They thought I was nothing but prey, something to toy with, something to crush. The dark room, the locked door, their laughter echoing through the night, it was supposed to be my end. But what they didn't know was that every moment of my torment carved something sharper inside me, something they could never take back. I remember the clock ticking, the faint light of dawn seeping through the cracks, and the taste of blood in my mouth, not theirs, yet. But when the sun rose, so did I. And by dawn, the hunters became the hunted. My name doesn't matter anymore. The woman I was before that night, the soft-spoken girl who trusted too easily, who smiled too quickly, she's gone. What's left is someone they created, someone they'll regret ever meeting. I still hear their voices, replaying like a sick soundtrack in my head. The way they mocked me, the way they thought I wouldn't survive to see another morning. My body ached, but my mind was sharper than it had ever been. Because I wasn't planning on surviving. I was planning on ending it, ending them. I scanned the room with swollen eyes, memorizing everything, the door's lock, the placement of the lamp, the shards of glass from a bottle they'd broken. Tools. Weapons. Pieces of my salvation. The first mistake they made was underestimating me. The second, falling asleep. The dawn broke with a crimson light, and with it, I stood. My hands trembling, not from fear, but from the storm building inside me. By the time they woke, one by one, they'd learn the truth. Prey has teeth. And I was about to sink mine in. The room smelled of sweat and stale beer. They had collapsed carelessly, sprawled across the torn mattress and the floor, their snores vibrating through the silence. Monsters never imagined they'd need to guard themselves from their prey. I stood barefoot, every nerve in my body screaming with pain, but pain became fuel. I spotted the broken bottle neck on the floor, sharp, jagged, glinting faintly in the grey dawn light. My fingers closed around it, the edge biting into my palm, and for the first time all night, I smiled. The first one stirred. His eyelids fluttered open, confusion clouding his face as he saw me standing over him. He smirked, assuming I was too weak to fight back. That smirk never had the chance to fade. The bottle slid across his throat before his body could even tense, and the only sound was a gurgle, low, desperate, final. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. I only watched the life drain out of him. The others slept on, unaware their nightmare had begun. I felt the warmth of blood on my hands, but instead of disgust, I felt clarity. 1 down. 2 to go. I dragged his body toward the corner, silent, methodical, my every movement precise. My heart beat steady now, not frantic, not fearful. It beat like a war drum. By the time the second stirred, I was ready. His eyes widened as he saw his friend's limp form, and his mouth opened to shout. The lamp's cord was already around his throat before sound could escape. He kicked, he clawed, he fought for his life. I leaned in, close enough to whisper into his ear. You should never have touched me. The life faded from his eyes before the words even left my lips. And then, only one remained. The last one, the leader. The one who laughed the loudest, who struck the hardest, who thought himself untouchable. He was still sleeping, completely unaware that he was about to wake into the longest morning of his life. I crouched down, watching his chest rise and fall. My grip tightened on the shard of glass. My voice was steady, calm, deadly as I whispered to the dawn. Now, it's your turn. He was still snoring. Loud. Carefree. The sound made my stomach twist in disgust. How dare he sleep so peacefully after destroying lives? I crouched beside him, letting the jagged glass hover inches above his throat. For a moment, I considered ending it quickly, like tearing a page from a book, fast, brutal, over in one motion. My hand trembled, not from fear, but from the storm of choices raging inside me. But then I pulled back. No. He didn't deserve a quick death. Not him. I found a rusty chair in the corner, dragged it slowly across the floor, letting the metal legs scrape against the cement. The noise pierced the silence, sharp as a scream. His eyes shot open instantly, darting to me, his face pale, confusion bleeding into dread. "What the?" he croaked, sitting up. I said nothing. I only sat on the chair, watching him. The silence was heavier than words. He glanced around, saw the blood smeared across the floor, saw his friends' lifeless bodies sprawled in the shadows. His breath hitched. You didn't," he stammered, shaking his head. I leaned forward slowly, glass shard still in hand, and whispered, "Two down." He scrambled back against the wall, his bravado cracking like thin ice. "Listen, wait, we can talk about this." His voice trembled, the confidence gone. "I'll give you money. I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. Talk." I cut him off, my tone razor sharp. "Was there talking last night? Did you ask me if I wanted this?" His mouth opened, then shut. He had no defense. I let the silence stretch, every second suffocating him more than my hands ever could. His body shook. I wanted him to feel it, the fear, the helplessness, the knowing that death was close, circling him like a wolf. Then, without warning, I lunged. The shard slashed across his arm, quick, brutal. He screamed, clutching the wound, his eyes wide with terror. "That's just the beginning," I hissed. He whimpered, shaking his head, trapped like prey. The dawn's first light filtered through the cracked window, casting his terrified face in pale gold. To him, the sun didn't bring hope, it brought judgment. I stood tall, looming over him, the weapon steady in my grip. "You'll die," I whispered, "but first, you'll understand." The air was heavy with the stench of blood and fear. My hand still dripped red, but my eyes were dry, hollow, steady. He crawled backward, his back pressed to the cold wall. The same man who had laughed at my screams just hours ago now whimpered like a child. I dragged the glass across the floor, slow enough for the screech to rattle his skull. Every second I didn't strike was another second he drowned in terror. "You're sick," he spat, his voice cracking. "You're a monster." I laughed. A low, broken laugh that echoed off the concrete. "Monster? No. I'm the mirror. You showed me what I was worth to you. Now I'm showing you who you really are." He tried to stand, but his leg buckled. He slipped in a pool of his friend's blood. The sight made him gag, and I let him choke on the horror of what he was standing in. Then I moved fast. My hand clamped his jaw, squeezing until his teeth nearly cracked. The shard pressed against his cheek, a hair's breadth from carving. His breath came in short, panicked bursts, his eyes rolling with the realization that dawn would not save him. "You wanted me silent," I whispered in his ear, voice trembling with both rage and calm. "But silence has a way of turning into screams." I pulled back, not cutting, not yet. I wanted him to beg. I wanted him to understand the weight of fear that had wrapped itself around me all night long. And he did. His knees hit the ground, his palms smeared in blood as he folded. "Please, please don't. I'll do anything." His voice cracked under the weight of his own cowardice. For a heartbeat, I let him believe I might spare him. I let his hope flicker like a candle in the storm. Then I snuffed it out. The glass came down, sharp, fast, final. The sound was wet, his scream cut short, his body jerking once, then nothing. I stood over him as the first full light of dawn spilled through the window. The sky was painted gold, but inside this room, dawn carried no warmth. Only judgment. I dropped the shard, letting it clatter beside him. My hands shook, but not from fear, no, from release. For the first time since last night, I breathed freely. I wasn't their victim anymore. I was their reckoning. I didn't leave the room immediately. I stood there, staring at the three bodies. The silence was heavier than the screams had ever been. My chest rose and fell, but inside I was steady, too steady, as if all the pieces of myself had finally clicked into place. But then I heard something. A creak on the stairs. My blood chilled. Someone else was here. The dread stretched, every second louder than any shout could be. My bare feet stepped carefully across the floor. The glass shard was gone, but I didn't need it anymore. My mind had become the sharpest weapon in the room. He was just a boy. Barely 17. His eyes widened when he saw me, his mouth opening to scream. But no sound came out. He froze at the sight of what I had become. I didn't move at first. I just looked at him. Let him feel the air, thick with blood and judgment. His trembling hands clutched the banister, but he didn't run. He knew running would only make me chase. "Do you want to end up like them?" I asked, my voice eerily calm. He shook his head violently, tears already streaming. I stepped closer. "Then you'll carry this silence. You'll remember this dawn. And you'll know, it was mercy that spared you." The boy collapsed to his knees, sobbing. I left him there, shaking, broken, and alive. When I walked out into the sunlight, the world was too bright. Birds sang like nothing had happened. But inside me, the storm still raged. I didn't run. I didn't hide. I walked straight down the street, past neighbors who turned their heads, past strangers who looked at the blood on my clothes and gasped. None of it mattered. Because justice wasn't in the law. Justice wasn't in the police sirens I heard growing closer. Justice was in my hands. And I had delivered it. Years later, they would call me a murderer. A monster. But those who really knew the truth whispered something different. She was survival. She was vengeance. She was silence turned into a storm. And as I sit here, pen in hand, telling this story, I feel no regret. Only release. Because at dawn, I stopped being their victim. And became their nightmare.